started the show with that. Talked a little bit about the game itself, the overall impact of it. Mark Ziegler joined us live from Sochi to say he thinks, and for whatever it's worth with the polls, the polls are subjective, human polls, and it's not always representative. Or, I don't want to go too far down this road before we say hello to Jim Sterk, but he thought maybe outside of the top 10, again, for whatever it is that is worth. So let us introduce the athletic director at San Diego State University. He is Jim Sterk. I always appreciate a couple minutes of his time right here on San Diego Sports Leader, the Mighty 1090. Jim, good to talk to you. Thank you very much.
Darren, thanks for having me.
I appreciate it. I know you probably were pulling hard there for that 21st straight game. Were you on the road with the team last night?
I did not go. A couple of my staff did, but I didn't go with them. We have a lot going on here, and we'll be with them almost all the other games.
Well, give us an idea. I mean, just from your perspective here, you're always hoping for the best. I mean, the position of athletic director comes with a certain level of optimism, I'd think. In your wildest dreams before the season started, do you think we'd be talking about the fifth-ranked team in the country and a team that rattled off 20 straight?
Yeah, and being disappointed that you're 21 and 1 or 21 and 2 or whatever. So it's a great position to be in. I didn't think we would be this high, but the team has really come together, playing really good defense. Last night, was a disappointing night, but I don't know if you've heard this fact, but the last number 5 ranked team to lose in Wyoming ended up playing in the national championship game. So if that's the case, I'll take that loss last night, and hopefully, everyone learns from losses, and I think we can grow from it as a team. But I'm excited about this team because they're competitors.
Yeah, and that would be the Utah Utes with Majerus, right, which ended up losing to Kentucky.
Yes, yeah.
See, I'm on it. I knew somebody would drop that at some point here this afternoon. I like that stat. Do you guys feel, a lot of your fan base is concerned about, how far the Aztecs will tumble? And, I think everybody would agree you guys are probably going to take a tumble. How much do you anticipate, and how much are you guys held to a different standard here because you play in the Mountain West?
Yeah, and the West Coast, and people don't see us in the wins that we have, but I think, one, the league is really good, and to play at Wyoming is a difficult task. Just like playing at Utah State is a difficult task, to play at Kansas is a difficult one, and those are tough environments, and I think the people that know basketball understand that a little bit. We will, but it depends a lot on what other things happen. How the other top 10 react. I would say, we could end up outside of the top 10, but where we are at the end of the season is where I'm concerned about.
How much do the polls matter? I always talk about the polls on the radio station because, I think sometimes it's for people like me. It's for people that are in my business. It's for the fans. It's for the media. But, as an athletic director, how much time are you spending on the polls, on the human polls?
Not a whole lot on that. It's great to be recognized, and it's great for the university. It's great for the program, to be up there and be talked about. Yesterday, there were 3 different national articles on Steve Fisher and the program. I think that's very good. I think that those kinds of things are really important as well. So, not as concerned. The RPI is more one that the people look at on the committee and who we played and how we're playing and all of that. So I think those are the things that are more important than the polls.
We're talking to Jim Sterk, athletic director at San Diego State. To a certain extent, Jim, and I don't know if this falls at your doorstep or if this is more, for Mike May and some of the other people in your athletic department. Do you find yourself politicking on behalf of San Diego State when you get on the phone with some of your fellow athletic directors around the country? I mean, do you have to sell them on what San Diego State is at this point, or do they know?
No, they know, and it's more important. The people on the committee will be putting. We put packets together of as we're heading down the stretch, as it gets closer. Our position and making sure that they know certain things, that information is there, and people on the committee are they give different assignments to different leagues, and Judy McLeod from the Conference USA is our representative. That she was at our game here when the NCAA tournament was, the NCAA national meetings were here a few weeks ago in January. She came to a game, and they're well aware of what we're doing.
Talking to Jim Sterk. Jim, some of your fans have also, expressed a little bit of concern just about the television deal that you guys have. For you personally, when you find out that your game is going to be broadcast on ESPN3, and I think that that's pretty much done for the remainder of the season, is that a disappointment for you? Give your thoughts on ending up here on ESPN3.com.
Yeah, that's a great one. Probably the way things are evolving in 3 years, we'll be disappointed if we're not on ESPN3. I think because the international reach that it has. I've talked to people that watch the game, at a soccer match, and they were able to watch it on their iPhone. So those are kind of things that's evolving. What would be great to have is if we're on ESPN3, have a local TV, be able to broadcast it. But right now, ESPN, paid for those rights when we are a league member in the Mountain West Conference. The league controls the rights to your home games, whether they're conference or non-conference, and so they sign those deals. ESPN paid for the national rights, and they're trying to promote a new platform that they think is the future of watching sports. So there's a blessing and a curse with that.
Yeah, you know what it reminds me of, and I was there when it happened, was ESPN2. And everybody used to complain about ESPN2, and ESPN deliberately would put Duke, North Carolina on ESPN2 to force the hand of people to have to pick it up. So, this is just sort of, the next step in that whole evolution of online and digital platforms, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, ACC schools, SEC schools, they're on ESPN3, and they're doing that intentionally to put games like that on there. So it's not, it's not because we're number 5 and, we should, have respect. I mean, they select those games prior to the season, and they're strategic about that.
We're talking to Jim Sterk. He's the athletic director at San Diego State. We're with you here on San Diego Sports Leader, the Mighty 1090. Jim, when we first talked about inviting you on the show, it was coming off the weekend there and what we saw at Texas Tech. And, I would think for an athletic director, the coaches coach and the players play. But I would think seeing something like that, when you see an Oklahoma State player go into the stands, what does that say to an athletic director here? I mean, does that send a chill up your spine that, that could happen in a lot of different spots and a lot of different people around the country might be looking at your program differently?
Yeah, I think, you want to be, respectful, and it's disappointing to see, a fan react that way. We've had, issues like that, and we've taken seats away. Or move people, but our operations staff and are always looking for something like that and try to prevent it. And overall, our fans are great. They love to cheer for our team, and I think that's the way it should be, as opposed to cheering against somebody.
And like you said, overall, I'm sure the fans at Texas Tech are probably pretty good too. But, now all of a sudden you get a black eye here because of one knucklehead sitting out there and mouthing off at the inappropriate time.
Yeah, I think they came to a mutual decision that he's no longer coming to any more games this year.
But you actually had to speak with fans or do things and relocate fans or take tickets away because of behavior?
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's part of the life of an athletic director. You mentioned that the NCAA tournament was the NCAA conference was in town a couple of weeks ago. And the national news on that, Jim, seemed to center around the big, what we would, for lack of a better phrase, consider to be the BCS-type conferences here. Did you feel like that conference as a whole? I mean, was there something that you took out of that as the athletic director at San Diego State, which plays in the Mountain West?
It was. We've had some national meetings along the way. In September, the Division 1A athletic directors met in Dallas and kind of discussed where the athletic directors wanted it to go. And I think for the most part, I think the the 5 major revenue conferences, as you will, they're producing so much revenue that they have a political black eye that they need to address, and the deal is that they're paying coaches $5 million. They have $25 million TV contracts. I don't have a PR problem. I don't have that PR problem of having a $136 million budget, and the scholarship amount hasn't changed over the 20 years. And so I think they're looking for ways to be able to get resources in the hands of the student athletes, not pay per se, but to pay for more expenses that they incur as a student. And one is the cost of education, the difference between a scholarship and the cost of education. The challenging thing is within their own leagues, they can't decide on what the best way of accomplishing that, whether is it need-based or is it, the legislation that was passed and then overturned just gave the stipend amount to full scholarship student athletes, and that really swung people in the wrong way on the Title IX, because there's more full scholarship equivalencies than equivalency sports on the men's side than the women's side. And so if you gave every student athlete, I know this is confusing, but if you gave every student athlete that's on the men's side a full scholarship, and football is the one that swings at 85 scholarships, there's nothing on the women's side that has that amount of scholarships. Women's crew or rowing has 20, but they split it up among a number of people, and so there's some things that have to be done. I think there's going to be some progress made, and the ability for those schools that want to put more resources into the hands of the student athletes, and I think some of that is good. Some of it I may not agree with, but overall there'll be some changes made in the next 6 months probably. I think the board meets again in April, and then in August they'll have some legislation that they move forward and pass.
But doesn't that potentially negatively affect San Diego State? I mean, what's good for Texas and what's good for USC might not necessarily be good for San Diego State.
Correct. Yeah, and I think those are the things we're looking at. What are the things that are most important for us in our league? We looked at recruiting, a number of scholarships allowed per sport. I think those are important. The playing seasons, those kinds of things, to keep a level playing field. They have their advantages, now that are there. We beat kids, we beat schools on a lot of kids, but the majority of the time that they win those battles if they want somebody. So it wouldn't be much different probably than what it is now.
Last thing, Jim, before we let you go, what did you think about what the football players at Northwestern did in terms of going out there and finding representation through a labor union?
Yeah, I think there's a hearing today on that, and it's very complicated. There's no legal precedent for the case. I've been reading more about it and on the legal side, and and currently there's only football and men's basketball players in that group, and they're calling themselves the College Athletics Players Association, and we're the NCAA is amateur sports, and we have an organization that has rules, and I'm one that if they don't like the rules, there's pro leagues that they can play in, and someone said trying to pay players would be like trying to require the pros to take 12 credits, and pass 12 credits, when they're playing. So they're two different leagues and two different levels, and I think it's a very small population of players who you could say maybe make a profit, for the school. But you look at you're going to pay a quarterback X. What are you going to pay a lineman? What are you going to pay a third baseman on your softball team or a long jumper? It really gets complicated quick on how you do that. And so we have standardized rules for a reason. And I think the value of education is you look at a USC. Is it probably $70,000 a year for scholarship, room and board, and everything, something like that. So over a 5-year period, where they redshirt in a 5-year period, that's $350,000, and that's without looking at the medical, the training, the coaching, the facilities, and all the benefits that they receive. So I think you're talking about a very small cohort of student athletes that might not feel like they have a good deal going.
Yep, and it's a popular group too, which is certainly part of the storyline there as well.
Yeah.
Hey, Jim, always a pleasure. I mean, things continue to roll up there. I know today coming off a first loss since November 14th, but continued success up at San Diego State. We always appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks. I think one thing to share with people. I think overall since 2010, our men's basketball and football teams have the third best winning percentage in the country over that 4-year period. And so I think a lot of great things going on with our students and our coaches. They're doing a great job, and just appreciate all the support.
Well, Jim, always our pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.